Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver. As always, we've got a great show for you guys today. You know, for there to be no football in the last week, for yesterday to be the first Sunday without football, of course, if you throw out Pro Bowl week, for this to be the first Sunday without football yesterday on Valentine's Day, I hope everybody had a great day. In 4, 5, 6 months, that's we're loaded with stories today. So, first of all, before I get into anything, I'm going to talk about Anthony Davis in just a second. Also going to talk about LeBron, what this means for him, what AD's injury means for LeBron. Also, why I believe the Utah Jazz, they're not pretenders, man. They're legit. And I'll explain that in just a few minutes. And also, why Dak, not talking about Jerry Jones, but why Dak has the leverage in contract negotiations moving forward with the Dallas Cowboys. Talk about Russell Wilson a little bit as well. And at the end of the show, today's President's Day. So I'm going to talk about politics. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to talk about U.S. presidents and their involvement in the world of sports because, man, we've had a lot of presidents that were great athletes or big sports fans, so I'll discuss all that in just a few minutes. But we had some tragic news today coming out of Florida involving a former athlete, Vincent Jackson, who played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers most recently before he retired in 2016. According to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, they found Vincent Jackson in a hotel room dead at the age of 38 years old. They are investigating the situation now. We don't know a cause of death. All I can say is it's devastating. It's tragic. And my heart goes out to his wife, his family, and Vincent Jackson. He was a really good receiver with the San Diego Chargers and was a really good receiver. He had three or four straight 1,000-yard seasons with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's saying something because, pre-Tom Brady this year, Tampa Bay didn't really have any quarterbacks, and Vincent Jackson, one thing that people have really pointed out over the last couple of hours since the news broke is the work that he did for our soldiers in the military. He multiple times he visit military bases, and would constantly, visit our troops and just mad respect to him. And so it's just a tragic situation. Vincent Jackson has passed at the age of 38, so rest in peace. And thoughts and prayers go out to his family. So transitioning to the NBA, Anthony Davis, in a game against the Denver Nuggets last night, a game which the Nuggets won convincingly, 122-103 over the Lakers. Just a bad overall performance by LA. I watched the game last night. It was just Denver outplayed them. Jokic was unbelievable. But Anthony Davis re-aggravated an Achilles injury which had been bothering him over the last few weeks. Now, the other night against Memphis, looked great, looked healthy, and then he's driving to the basket in the game last night against the Denver Nuggets, and his Achilles, comes up on him. He re-aggravates it. Now, I said, it's good that the news broke from Adrian Wojnarowski, of course, the NBA insider for ESPN, because I was going to come on the show today and say, look, I don't care what the injury is. There's no way I'm playing Anthony Davis minimum until after the All-Star break. And Woj came in about an hour ago and reported that Anthony Davis will be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks after suffering a right calf strain, and it's likely he will not return prior to the March 5th to 10th All-Star break, sources tell ESPN. So AD's out till All-Star break. And look, the Lakers need to play this one very safe. They need to play it safe. If it was the NBA Finals, I'd say don't risk it, man. We saw 2 years ago with another elite player who suffered a calf strain, and he was rushed back. In the very first game, he came back. He ruptured his Achilles, and I'm of course talking about Kevin Durant. So, we saw KD is just balling. He's dominating the playoffs in 2019, and in Game 5 against the Houston Rockets, it showed no signs of a previous injury. I think I remember in that series he had some issues with his elbow, so that's completely unrelated to his calf Achilles area. And he goes, classic KD rip around on the baseline, takes one dribble, pull up, mid-range jumper, nothing but net. And then he starts jogging back the other way to get back on defense, and it goes on him. His Achilles goes on him. He starts grabbing it. And what I hear from a lot of athletes who injure their calf, and especially who injure their Achilles or rupture their Achilles, they always act like, or they think that someone kicked them, because that's what they say that it feels like. It feels like someone kicked them in the calf Achilles area, and they look back. That's why you always see they're looking back. They're like, wait, what happened? And the Achilles went out on them. So AD drives to the basket last night, and he comes up hobbling a little bit. And according to the Lakers team doctors, his lower leg area was swelling up a little bit. So it was a little concerning. But even before the MRI today, the team pretty much determined, this isn't a serious injury that could keep him out for months and months. Like this isn't anything that could jeopardize the rest of his season, which is great. That's obviously great news. Hopefully he can get back after the All-Star break. But this is yet another situation with Anthony Davis, who nobody would doubt is absolutely a top 10 player in the NBA. Some would argue a top 5. I don't think he's top 5. I think it's Kevin Durant. When Kevin Durant's healthy, man, he's unguardable. KD, LeBron. Probably after that, I would probably go Kawhi Leonard. No, I'd go Giannis, then Kawhi Leonard, then Steph Curry. That'd be my top 5. But the point is, this is yet another issue with Anthony Davis. He can't stay healthy consistently, because even last season, over the first 7 years of his career, for 6 or 7 years of his career when he was in New Orleans, he'd deal with all kinds of stuff: shoulder, knee, ankle. I mean, it was always something. And it's weird how the human body works. It's different injuries affect different bodies differently. Yeah, I mean, you can't really describe it. And different people get hurt easier than others. And so you look at Anthony Davis, who had all kinds of injuries in New Orleans. He goes to the Lakers. For the most part, last season was totally healthy. But even when they got to the finals, listen, I was like, uh-oh. Game 5 of the finals last year, it wasn't really last year, it was 4 months ago in the finals against the Miami Heat. It was Game 5. The Lakers were looking to clinch the title that night, up 3-1. And AD is grabbing I think he rolled his ankle. He's grabbing his ankle area. And I guarantee you, Laker Nation, you were like, oh, no, we can't, not in this situation. And thankfully, he was able to come back. He was really good in Game 6, and the Lakers lost that Game 5, but wound up winning the title 2 days later in Game 6. But this is, to me, this is absolutely a reason for concern for the Lakers, because, listen, we saw the Lakers, and I know he's a different player. He's a different he's in a different situation physically than he was 2 years ago. I'm referring to LeBron James. But we saw the LA Lakers the last time they did not have Anthony Davis for an extended period of time, and it wasn't good. LeBron's first season in Los Angeles, of course, that was when Lonzo Ball was there, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, the kids in Los Angeles that are in New Orleans now, playing with Zion Williamson and the other guys there. But we saw in 2018-19, post-LeBron injury, and someone argued maybe he came back too early that season. You could certainly make that case. I don't know if any of us really know the severity of that injury. But LeBron comes back, and the Lakers are, I wouldn't say terrible, but they're average at average at the very best without Anthony Davis. And I'm not suggesting for even a second that Anthony Davis is more valuable than LeBron James. Come on now, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. But the Lakers cannot win a title without Anthony Davis. There's no question. Because to win a championship, I always say, you'd love to have 3 great players, or at least 2 great players and 1 really good player or high-end all-star. For example, the Brooklyn Nets, they have 2 great players, KD, James Harden, and a high-end all-star in Kyrie Irving. But if you have 2 superstars and you have good coach, good roster, you've got a shot to win a championship. Lakers have a good roster. And what worries me about this with AD's injury is now I feel like LeBron is going to have to take on a greater load. That's the thing that concerns me the most, because I mean, you look at the next few games for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I could see possibly a situation where LeBron has to play high minutes. Now, tomorrow night they play the Minnesota Timberwolves. They should be able to win that game, but then they play Brooklyn, okay? And the Lakers, by the way, have not been great at home. They've been better on the road than at home, which is really weird because, I mean, they're seems like they're almost unbeatable. The Lakers going back to, the early 2000s, if you take away the lean years when, Kobe's final years with the Lakers and, in between before they got LeBron, before they had, some really bad seasons, as we have some comments right here. I just looked at it, and as we have a comment from the All Even podcast with Barry Gurnt Jr. Shout out to Barry. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. But again, this is what worries me about LeBron is they play the Nets on Thursday. KD may or may not be back for that game, even if he's not. Kyrie and James Harden, man, I watched the game because I'm a Golden State fan, of course. The other night, the Nets are playing the Warriors. It was KD's first game back in the Bay Area since he left. And KD wasn't particularly great in that game, but when he was on the bench, man, Kyrie and James Harden were putting on a show. And we heard the Kyrie quote after the game. He said he told James Harden, hey, you're the point guard, I'm the shooting guard. And you saw how well that worked. I mean, they were just unstoppable offensively. So even without Kevin Durant, the Nets could really, really give the Lakers some problems when Anthony Davis being out. Then they play the Miami Heat, okay, who, of course, they matched up with in the finals. This is kind of the same Miami roster minus, what's his name? Jay Crowder. You take Jay Crowder off the Miami Heat. Outside of that, it's pretty much the same roster as last season when they made the finals. And Miami's playing well right now, right? Miami's is playing much better basketball than they were at the start of the season when Jimmy Butler got hurt. So that's not going to be an easy game. Again, the Lakers do struggle a bit at home. Then you play the Washington Wizards. Russell Westbrook is playing great right now. So is Bradley Beal, who's averaging 33 points a game. Then they play the Utah Jazz. I'm going to get to the Jazz in just a second. Then you play Portland. Then you play Golden State, and Golden State beat the Lakers with LeBron and AD in Staples Center. So that's a concern there. Then you go up against the Suns, and you finish with not the LA Kings. I was thinking about hockey. They do play in the Staples Center, though. Then you play the Sacramento Kings. So outside of a couple games on here, Lakers do not have an easy schedule coming up in the next couple of weeks without Anthony Davis. So now, as far as the number one seed, I don't think it's going to matter. I really don't, because look, I would be stunned if we have full arenas by the playoffs, which I believe start in late May. I would like to think we'd be, further along in, vaccine distribution and whatnot. So, I mean, we just got to see. We've learned over the past year with COVID, it's a day by day thing, man. We have new information every single day. So, we got to take it, take what the experts give us and go with that. But if the playoffs start in late May, you're telling me that we're going to have full arenas. We may have some fans in the arenas, I would think. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we're not going to have full arenas. So home court advantage is not going to be that big of a deal. So I think if the Lakers don't get the number one seed, and remember, even if the Clippers have a better record than the Lakers, we see when the Lakers and Clippers play, even when the Clippers were way better than the Lakers, Lob City, right? Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, they had a great roster. Matt Barnes and Paul Pierce at the later stages of his career, JJ Redick, Doc Rivers was the head coach. Those were some really good teams. And the Lakers were hot garbage on the 4th of July. And Lakers fans still outnumber the Clippers fans. I'd say 75-25 or 80-20. I mean, it was even the Clippers, designated Clippers home games. That was a Lakers crowd. So I just look at it, and I don't think the home court advantage aspect is going to hurt them. What I'm worried about is it taking a toll on LeBron's body. Because the last few games, the Lakers, previously before they played Memphis on Friday night, they played not one, not two, but 3 straight overtime games, including 1 double overtime game, where LeBron, against the Detroit Pistons, the game that went to double overtime, LeBron was fantastic in that game. LeBron played 46 minutes against the Detroit Pistons. Then against the Oklahoma City Thunder, that game goes to overtime. LeBron plays 43 minutes. You don't want that in the regular season. Then they play the Thunder again and hold on by the skin of their teeth. LeBron made a great defensive play at the end. And LeBron played 41 minutes. Again, now listen, LeBron and Tom Brady, to me, are the 2 best conditioned athletes maybe ever maybe we've ever seen. LeBron takes insane care of his body. However, he is 36 years old. And listen, basketball, as much as any sport, it's hard on your lower body, right? Your legs, your calves, like it's tough. So if you take LeBron off the floor, you don't have Anthony Davis to put in the game. Kyle Kuzma's playing pretty well right now. So is Dennis Schroeder. But man, and Montrezl Harrell's playing good defense. Do we trust the team to either hold the lead early in the game or to come back? Now, maybe they can. Maybe they prove me wrong. But to me, this is concerning for the Lakers, not because of record. They're still a great basketball team. Once they get Anthony Davis back after the All-Star break, which is when I think at the very earliest he should come back. There's no way if I were the Lakers today, I'm telling Anthony Davis, you are not playing until at least after All-Star break. You cannot risk a major Achilles injury because one pop of that thing, season's over. You cannot win the finals. At that point, the Clippers would be better than you. The Jazz would definitely be better than you. One could argue Phoenix, San Antonio's playing well right now. But I'm more worried about it taking a toll on LeBron's body because you want him to be fresh by the time the playoffs get here. So, sticking in the Western Conference, let's talk about a team that I was a little skeptical of about a month ago. I'm all in. I'm all in on the Utah Jazz. Look at what they've done. Now, again, I hear this comparison, and it's fair to, some people are comparing the Utah Jazz to the Atlanta Hawks from 2014-15, right? The Hawks were the number 1 seed, and they had all these, Jeff Teague was an all-star, Kyle Korver, great shooter, but he was an all-star. Al Horford had an all-star season for sure, so did Paul Millsap, but it was just kind of like, yeah, they're good in the regular season, but come on, they're not going to get past Cleveland now. That was LeBron's first year in Cleveland. They didn't start the best, but LeBron came back. He had like a short vacation. He came back. The Cavs went on a roll. And even when Kevin Love got hurt in the first round, it's still like, man, it's LeBron and Kyrie. Atlanta's not getting past them. Come on. But Utah, first of all, let's ask this question. If we're comparing that Hawks team to this Jazz team, did that Utah, or excuse me, that Atlanta team have anybody better than Donovan Mitchell, or even anyone as good? Al Horford was really good. He was really good. Donovan Mitchell, dude's balling right now. I mean, dude's straight up balling right now. If I could pull up his stats, I know he's putting up insane numbers. And by the way, the Jazz actually play a game tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers, and it's a dang shame that game's not on national television. It's at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's see if I can pull up Donovan's numbers. Here we go. Averaging 24 a game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. I mean, he's having an unbelievable season. I know we had this discussion when the Jazz, and remember, Utah should have beaten Denver in the first round last year. They had a 3-1 lead without Bogdanovich, who's a great shooter, really good defensive player, and with Mike Conley not playing, the way we typically see Mike Conley play like he did in Memphis. And, Mike Conley, even, you look at his numbers. He didn't play the other night. He's averaging 16 points, shooting 41% from the three-point line. He's having a really, really good season, a bounce-back season from last year when he didn't look fully comfortable in Quinn Snyder's system. But you have the great rim protector, Rudy Gobert, who's a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Again, you have Bogdanovich. You have Royce O'Neal, who's a really good shooter. Same with Joe Ingles. This is a deep team. And what I like about them is they have layers. And here's the thing, is as we have another comment by the All Even podcast, Jazz are fool's gold. Gobert being your second best player won't fly in the playoffs in small lineups. He'll be ineffective. That's fair. Although through the first 4 games of that series last year in the first round, he did a number on Jokic. Now, last 3 games, Jokic, went crazy. But, Nikola Jokic, the first or second best center, top 2 center in the game. Dude was getting buckets. Dude was stopping him from getting buckets. Gobert was shutting him down the first 4 games. So if he could keep that up over a longer stretch of time. But again, I'm not saying the Jazz are going to beat the Lakers. I think today the Lakers are the best team in the West with Anthony Davis. If he's not healthy, I guess I got to say the Clippers. Because the Clippers, albeit against Cleveland, were missing both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and just dominated the Cavaliers now against Cleveland, but still pretty impressive. But I'm looking at the Jazz last few games, and they beat the Miami Heat by 18 points. Miami's playing well right now. The defending Eastern Conference champions. Okay, they didn't blow out. If you consider 14-point win, not a blowout. I don't. But Giannis scored 29, shot 12 for 20 from the field, and Utah just completely controlled that basketball game against the Milwaukee Bucks, who some people have going to the NBA Finals this year. Okay, you look at, they dominated the Boston Celtics. Now, Boston's not playing the best right now. I'll give you that. They beat a very good Indiana Pacers team. Okay, beat Charlotte, beat Atlanta. Okay, beat Detroit. So some pretty easy wins there. But then you're looking, they blew out the Dallas Mavericks. I like Dallas a lot this year. They didn't play the best against Portland last night, but they're playing much better down the stretch here. They blew out Golden State, who's again, I'm not being a homer here, but Golden State is a solid team. They're not a championship team; they're a solid team. Let's be fair here. They beat Denver. Denver did beat them later on. They destroyed the New Orleans Pelicans, and New Orleans a couple weeks ago, or a week, it was 1 week ago, just dominated Milwaukee, who's a real team. Jazz beat Milwaukee earlier in January. So here's what I'm looking forward to. The Utah Jazz on, let's see, here we go. A week from, actually this coming Sunday. So on national TV, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific on ESPN, they're going to take on the LA Lakers. Again, this was without Anthony Davis. So I guess Utah should probably be favored in this game because they are at home. Again, no home court advantage, but the Lakers, there is something to having to travel to the game, being on a plane for a couple hours. But if Utah can win this game against the Lakers, now I got to see how they win it. Because if they win close, LeBron drops 40, 40, 12, and 8, okay, against Utah without AD, and the Jazz still win by 2, like on the last second shot or something, or they get a stop at the end, then I'll back off this. But until then, they beat some darn good basketball teams. So if they can keep this up, they've won 18 of their last 19, number 1 seed in the tougher Western Conference. I can't sleep on them right now because, and you say, Bryson, last year you didn't buy into Milwaukee because you said one great player, Giannis, and of course Giannis is better than Donovan Mitchell, but one great player, Giannis, and you said Chris Middleton, even though he's an all-star, doesn't show up in the playoffs. I did say that, and I ended up being right in the end. The difference is Milwaukee had some, obviously Giannis, MVP, unbelievable player. Chris Middleton, an all-star in the Eastern Conference. We could still have the debate. He's a great shooter, but we could still have the debate whether he's an all-star in the East. But this is pre-Drew Holiday, by the way. And then you got guys, Brook Lopez and DiVincenzo and George Hill. Nice players, but not guys I'd want on a championship team or even a contending team. While Donovan Mitchell is not in the ballpark of Giannis yet, which he's not, that's fair. Like I said, Utah has layers. They have great shooters across the board. They're a great defensive team. They got the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert. So I'm just saying, I got to see how they play against the Los Angeles Lakers this coming Sunday. I'll definitely talk about the game a week from today. But how they play against the Lakers this coming Sunday night in Utah, in Salt Lake City, without Anthony Davis, the Lakers minus Anthony Davis. And, it's tough to judge. If they win by 15 points, 20 points, and, you can't stop LeBron. There's certain players you can't stop. You can just hope to contain or limit. But if LeBron has 40 points, 12 rebounds, 8 or 9 assists, and, if the Lakers win, then I'm like, okay, I'm off the Utah train. I'm off the Utah bandwagon. But we just got to see how this plays out because they beat some really good basketball teams. So let's shift to Dak, the offseason story that will just not end. Me being a Dak Prescott fan, this has been pretty this has not been fun. So I can't even imagine the how annoying this has got to be for Dak, his agent, his family. But let's talk about who has the leverage. Now, I made the case on, I think it was Friday's show. It might have been Thursday's show. I think it was Friday's, where you say the Cowboys went 2-3 through their first 5 games. Dak, of course, got hurt against the New York Giants in the 5th game. But Dak was leading the league in passing. He was in the top 5 in touchdown passes. Okay. They were losing close games to playoff teams, Cleveland, Seattle, the Rams. So, and by the way, minus the Rams game, Dak wasn't great in that game. He was okay. He wasn't great. But against the Seattle Seahawks on the road, a defense which turned out to be one of the best in the NFL, Dak dropped over 450 yards passing. Dallas scored 31 points. As a matter of fact, when Dak left the field against the Seahawks with 3 minutes left, what do you know? The Dallas Cowboys had the lead. And all they needed, come on, defense, get one stop. And they couldn't do it. Seattle goes right down, scores a touchdown, and they win the game. And then they fall down. Dallas does 41-17 to the Cleveland Browns. I'm thinking, man, Dak, what's up? 24 unanswered points, 3 minutes left. And it's like, okay, defense, just get us one stop, and Dak can get the ball, go down the field, win the game, or at least tie it with a field goal, send it to overtime, and Dallas would have the momentum. And on the first play, Browns run a reverse to Odell Beckham Jr. He runs 20 yards backwards, cuts around the right side, runs 50-something yards. He probably ran closer to 80 or 90 yards for a touchdown to win the game, or to clinch the game, I should say. But it's just a situation where Dak was keeping them in these games, and then once Dak got hurt, dominated by Arizona, dominated by Washington twice, including one in front of the entire country on Thanksgiving Day. Dominated by the Philadelphia Eagles, who were not a good football team whatsoever. And this was with Carson Wentz, by the way. Dominated by the Baltimore Ravens. But again, I hear Dak's not that valuable to the Cowboys. I hear that Andy Dalton is just a tick below. He's not as good as Dak, but he's just a tick below Dak. That's what I heard. And Andy Dalton, who, high-end backup, low-end starters is what I would say about the Red Rifle, as J.J. Watt called him, the Red Ryder BB gun. Take that for what you will. But I just look at it and I say, okay, Dak, this is what Dak Prescott needs to do. Now, if he has the opening to go somewhere like San Francisco this offseason or Indianapolis, if they don't trade for Carson Wentz, and I'm like, hey, get out of Dallas while you can. But here's what Dak needs to do. So he just got $31 million. He only played 5 games, unfortunately. He would prefer to play the whole season and not have his ankle snapped, the opposite side. That would have been preferable. But that didn't happen. His ankle went out on him, and he was out for the rest of the season. But Dak gets $31.4 million last year to only play 5 games because the franchise tag, if there's one silver lining about the franchise tag, the money is fully guaranteed. And for those of you that don't know what the franchise tag is, it's a 1-year deal that pays you the average salary of the top 5 highest paid players at your position. So the average for the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, average salary per year, $31.4 million. So that's what Dak Prescott got. And then it ticks up to $37 million this year. So here's what Dak needs to do. Keep in mind the injury he suffered last year was on a freak play. That was, it wasn't like he's running and then his ACL goes out on him or his Achilles or something happens and he gets sacked and he breaks his shoulder. No, it's a play where he's trying to make a play, stiff arm. He's trying to stiff arm Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan, does everything he can. Dak's a big guy. He drags him down. Dak's ankle gets pinned under. It was just a really fluky, unfortunate play. So it was a freak play. As long as Dak is fully recovered and they assume he'll make a full recovery, they expect him to, I should say, great. So Dak can go get the $37 million, okay? Get the $37 million on the franchise tag this year. And while he will not have the long-term security, he now has, it's funny. We're thinking, oh my goodness, Dak's going to lose all this money when he got hurt. What if Andy Dalton leads the Cowboys to the playoffs? And oh man, Dak's going to. But Dallas looks absolutely inept. They looked like a dumpster. They looked close to a dumpster fire with Dak. Without Dak, it was just a mess. So he actually gained more leverage rehabbing his ankle than when he was actually on the field. But he only needed to be on the field for a few games because while the Cowboys weren't winning the games, the offense was just insane. It was the defense and the coaching that was the biggest issue. And I'm not saying Dak is Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, but he's a great, great young quarterback and has potential to be one of the best in the league. And so I say, go the Kirk Cousins route. What player in the entire National Football League? We have some great players. in the NFL. I mean, great players, future Hall of Famers in the NFL. What player has made more money over the last, let's see me do the math, over the last 5 seasons than anybody in the NFL? What player, out of all the great ones in the league, which one made more money than any player in the NFL for the last 5 seasons? That would be Kirk Cousins. Is Kirk Cousins the best quarterback? No. Is he a top 5? No, he's not top 5. Is he top 10? No, he's not top 10. The discussion is he top 15? That's where we kind of start to have a discussion there. So a top 15 at best quarterback, I'd say he's probably around 14 or 15. A top 15 quarterback has made more money than any other player in the NFL over the last half decade. Dak can blow that out of the water. Okay, is Dak the best quarterback in the league? Nope. Top 5? Probably not. Top 10? No doubt about it. Look at his numbers, look at his wins, and what he's had to carry. Okay, that he hasn't been given much help since his rookie year. So he can come back this year. He's got the $31 million last year. He can come back this year, $37 million, and put up huge numbers. Again, the only team I'm concerned about really next season in the NFC East is Washington, because the Giants, I think the Giants are a quarterback away from being a division winner. Okay, Giants and Washington are very similar teams. Washington has a better defensive front, although the Giants isn't bad. Giants have a really good defense. Really good skill players in offense. Are going to get Saquon Barkley back. Joe Judge has proven himself to be a pretty solid head coach. He's built a good culture with the Giants organization. And so you see that, and so is Washington. And so I say, look, it's not like the NFC East is the NFC West with Seattle and San Francisco and the Rams and Arizona, or it's not like the AFC North with Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Baltimore and Joe Burrow's in Cincinnati. Like, it's not a situation like that. Who's the best quarterback? Take Dak out. Who's the best quarterback in the NFC East? Jalen Hurts. And I like Jalen Hurts, but he's not elite yet. So, I mean, there's nobody in the NFC East today that anybody considers a Super Bowl contender. I know the Cowboys always got high odds going into the year, and it's like, stop. The Cowboys ain't going to the Super Bowl. So the Cowboys are not going to the Super Bowl this year. They cannot. There's no way the defense is going to do a complete 180 and be one of the best defenses in the league. There's no way. Okay, maybe it makes improvements under Dan Quinn, the new defensive coordinator. Maybe Mike McCarthy doesn't fake punt every other 4th down. Maybe that happens. But barring something unforeseen, the Cowboys are not going to go to the Super Bowl. Okay, Tampa Bay is going to be better next year. Green Bay is going to be better next year. We look at teams like if the New Orleans Saints if Jameis Winston is the guy, the Saints could be maybe in the picture next year. Okay, Washington's a quarterback away, and Washington might be a landing spot for Dak Prescott. Dak can come back. Okay, put up big numbers. Maybe even be in the MVP discussion. Cowboys can go 10-6, 9-7, 10-6. Dak can win a playoff game. They'd lose the next week to either Green Bay or Tampa Bay, and Dak could say, peace out, deuces, as Tyreek Hill says, or as Antoine Winfield told Tyreek Hill in the Super Bowl. Dak could do that to the Dallas Cowboys and to Jerry Jones and say, I'm out. I'm out of here. And then go somewhere like the San Francisco 49ers or the Indianapolis Colts, Chicago Bears, get his money, and be somewhere where, a team actually believes in him. And make, we saw the money. And, Kirk Cousins, by the way, his deal with the Vikings, he got back-to-back franchise tags with Washington. He hits free agency and gets a fully guaranteed. Every single penny on his contract is fully guaranteed. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case with Dak. It's probably not. But he could I don't know if he'll threaten Mahomes as far as guarantee money, but he could certainly get into that Deshaun Watson category. Deshaun's making $39 million a year. I think guaranteed he's like 115 guaranteed or something like that, somewhere in that area. But leverage, leverage sounds like who was the coach? Who was the coach who said playoffs? What are we talking about? Playoffs? I'm trying to remember who it was. Somebody put in the comments who that is. Is it Jim Mora? Maybe, I can't remember. But leverage, it's not even close. Explain to me how Jerry Jones has the leverage. Is it you could say, well, he looks at the other two quarterbacks in Dak's draft, Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, and both teams are moving on from them 2 years after signing them to large extensions. Okay, but who's been the best quarterback of those three in totality over the past 5 years? It's clearly Dak. He's got more wins, better stats. Okay, with if you take Goff, Goff had the best situation, best coach of the three, best defense, offensive line. All three had pretty good offensive lines up until last year. The Rams had good offensive line, Philly and Dallas, not so much. But all pretty similar scenarios. And those two guys are getting traded because they got signed to contracts that, frankly, they never did deserve. I never bought into either Goff. I dang sure didn't buy into Wentz. Dak I bought into since day one. Now, I'm not going to be the determining factor on that, of course. But, explain to me how Jerry Jones has the leverage, because Jerry Jones has seen, since Troy Aikman retired, he's had two great quarterbacks, Tony Romo, Dak Prescott. Outside of that, it's been an absolute train wreck of quarterbacks. Kellen Moore, who's now the offensive coordinator in Dallas, Brandon Weeden and Kyle Orton and Stephen McGee and Captain Checkdown himself, Brad Johnson. Even Drew Bledsoe was they've had some bad quarterback play in Dallas, minus Romo and Dak Prescott, over the past 20 seasons since Troy Aikman retired. So you'd think Jerry Jones would have learned his lesson, but clearly he has not, of not, buying into a franchise quarterback and not being able, these guys don't grow on trees, right? It's hard to find a great quarterback in this league. It is. And so you've got him now. You overpaid DeMarcus Lawrence. That didn't work. You overpaid Zeke. That didn't work. Amari Cooper. That didn't work. Zach Martin deserves every penny he gets. Zach Martin's unbelievable. But you look at the Dallas Cowboys, and it's not. Let's see. We got another comment from the All Even podcast. If Dak goes to free agency, he's not making $40 million. First of all, I don't know what he's getting. I don't know what he's asking for. Nobody has really specified. Jerry Jones hasn't said it. Todd France hasn't said it. Nobody's really said. Dak hasn't said it. We don't know what Dak's asking for. And to be honest, we didn't really know what Mahomes was asking for. Let's see, 34-year Jerry offer was fair. Yeah, that's a fair deal. Again, we don't know. I think the biggest dispute between the two was the fact that Dak wanted a 4-year deal, because I'm reading over the past couple of days, this new TV contract that's coming in, and it's going to be insane. I think they want to even get like Disney involved, and we know the business that Disney is. And so, of course, you're going to have NBC and Fox and ESPN, and ABC is going to be in on the deal, CBS. So this new TV deal, the salary cap, that's going to override, the COVID's going to have an impact on the salary cap. But 2-3 years from now, which I think the TV deal expires in 2022, if I remember correctly, the TV deal is going to far override the COVID impact on the salary cap. So Dak is going to want to get the 4-year deal, hit free agency 1 year earlier, and then really get, he get paid. Aaron Rodgers, if he's still in the league, I'm assuming he will. We'll get paid. Russell Wilson. So smart business move by Dak. Again, money, we don't know who's guaranteed. I think the one thing we do know for sure, Dallas wants a 5-year deal. Dak Prescott wants a 4-year deal. So that's I think that's the one thing we know right now. If a report comes out tomorrow and they say Dak's asking for north of Deshaun Watson money, I'm like, okay, Dak, you're great, but I don't know about $42 million, or somewhere in that area. Definitely not Mahomes money. Mahomes is in a whole another category to himself. But again, leverage wise, there's no way you could say that Jerry has the upper hand over Dak. I'm just trying to formulate my head, because again, since Troy Aikman, Romo, Dak, outside of that, it's been nothing at quarterback, absolutely nothing. So that's what I'm looking at in this situation. Now, let's talk about another quarterback in Russell Wilson. Now, Russ, kind of, the one criticism he has taken, not many people has really criticized him for not asking for a trade, but asking to have some input on the Seattle offense. They with Pete Carroll and things like that. I don't have an issue with that. Pat Mahomes has input. Aaron Rodgers has input. Russell Wilson's been in the league 9 years. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in football. Matter of fact, I think he's second in the end. Tom Brady's number one in this category. Tom Brady's number one in a lot of categories. Tom Brady's number one in this category. Russell Wilson's number 2. You know what that is? It's what football is all about. It's what sports is all about. It's called wins. Russell Wilson's number 2. He's got the right to have an input on what Seattle does. You know, Patrick Mahomes has been in the league. This was his 3rd year or 4th year. This was his 4th year in the league, his 3rd year as a starter. He had just completed his 3rd year last year after winning the Super Bowl. And so he's great. He's the best quarterback in football, but he has not established himself yet and he will, but not yet. He has not established himself as an all-time great quarterback. And Andy Reid said, hey, Pat, who do you want us to draft in the 1st round? And Pat said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Worked pretty well. It wasn't, you're not going to get you're probably not going to get like a superstar late in the 1st round, because Kansas City was the last pick of the 1st round, of course, because they had just won the Super Bowl. But he said Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a pretty darn good season with Kansas City last year. He's not a power back. He's more of a Darren Sproles type of guy. That's who he reminds me of. But 3 years into his career, 2 years into it as a starter, Andy Reid, the best offensive coach in football, says, hey, Pat, who do you want us to draft? Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay, well, we're going to draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Whereas Seattle, Russ has been there. He's been to the Super Bowl twice as many times as Mahomes, or not twice as many, 2 times to the Super Bowl, just like Pat Mahomes. Same record in the Super Bowl as Pat Mahomes, 1-1. Really should be 2-0. They should not have thrown the ball at the 1-yard line on 2nd and goal with 20 seconds left. But, he's made multiple Pro Bowls. He's never had a losing season in the NFL. Yeah, he's earned the right. And I've heard, the one criticism I've heard of Russell Wilson, in what he said, what he said on the Dan Patrick show, and then I think it was a media conference call that he had after his interview with Dan Patrick last week, is he kind of took, I guess you could say, shots at the offensive line, saying, I'm kind of tired of getting hit. I like to stay upright. That's the only thing I wasn't the biggest fan of. Is he completely wrong? Not necessarily. You know what? It goes 50-50. Because here's the thing about Russell Wilson. They're saying let Russ cook. Part of letting Russ cook is letting him run around, trying to make a play, and either that'll result in a touchdown. It's almost Bruce Arians offense-esque, except the quarterback is kind of doing it. Either Russ is going to run around, make some insane play, throw a touchdown to either Lockett or DK Metcalf, and it's like, highlight reel is going to be on SportsCenter tonight, or he gets sacked. Now, what I think is a little weird about this is in 2015 through 2017, Seattle had a bottom three worst offensive lines in the league. 2015 through 2017, Seattle's offensive line was awful. And as a matter of fact, in 2017, Russell Wilson led the NFL in passing with the last ranked offensive line in football. To me, that's as great of accomplishment as he's ever had. Last ranked offensive line in the league, first in the NFL in passing. That's pretty spectacular right there. And so here's what I want Seattle to do. Okay, address the offensive line. Draft some guys, go after some dudes in free agency, maybe make a trade before the season or during the season, and say, Russ, okay, we've got the offensive line for you. You're an unbelievable player. In my mind, I still believe Russell Wilson's the second best quarterback in football to Patrick Mahomes. I do. I know he didn't finish the season great last year. He lost the playoff game to the LA Rams, threw a pick 6 in that game. The game was in Seattle. It was the wild card game. I get it. He's just as good as Mahomes. Thing is, Mahomes is better long term than Russell Wilson. But that's what I think. That's what Seattle needs to do. Okay, Russ, you don't like our offensive line? Okay, we're going to go after some dudes in the draft. Okay, there's some pretty good offensive linemen coming out of the draft this year. Maybe trade for somebody, get someone in free agency, and solve that problem. And say, okay, Russ, here you go. You're a franchise quarterback. We want to make sure we protect you because Russell Wilson has been sacked more than any quarterback, and it's by a mile. Matt Ryan's been sacked like 320-something times since, I think Matt Ryan's been sacked like, I don't remember the exact number, but it's in the 320s. 320, I'm going to throw out a 325-ish times since 2012. Russell Wilson's been sacked 394 times. Russ has been sacked almost 400 times in the first 9 seasons of his NFL career. He wants to play till he's 45. He said that. He said, Tom Brady motivates him. He wants to play to 45. Well, I believe he's 32 now. He can't take for the next 13 years the hits that he's been taking. Now, some of it's on the O-line, because the O-line is not great. It's outside of his first 3 seasons in the league, his offensive line, he's never had a great offensive line, at least pass protecting. And some of it's on Russ. He does hold the ball a little too long. He is trying to make a play. A little Andrew Luck-esque, except he doesn't get hit as hard as Andrew Luck did. I mean, Andrew Luck wanted to throw the home run ball every time. But some of it's on Russ, some of it's on the offensive line. They're not going to get rid of Russ. I mean, that'd be the biggest mistake in the franchise's history. But they can rebuild the offensive line, because Russ, like I said, it's 50-50. Russ is right that the offensive line is not great, but in the offensive line's defense, Russ does hold the ball a pretty long time trying to make a big play. So Seattle's not going to get rid of Russell Wilson. That'd be idiotic. So rebuild the O-line and say, okay, we're giving it to you, Russ. And you've got some good receivers too. DK Metcalf has emerged as a star. Tyler Lockett's a great deep threat. Maybe they can get him an extra receiver in the draft, on the cheap in the first or second round. And Seattle will be ready to go next year. I absolutely, though, and I said this last week, I 100% agree with Russell Wilson being frustrated with not having an input on the offense. He's Russell Wilson. He's earned the right. Tom Brady has input, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes. Russell Wilson's earned the right to have an input on what the Seahawks run an offense. And one of the criticisms of Seattle, and you know me, I'm all about running the ball. You do have to run the ball. But if running the ball is the absolute number one priority when you have the second best quarterback in the National Football League, he's absolutely at bare minimum top 5 quarterback in the league. If running the ball is still your number one objective, we're having the wrong conversation here. So Seattle's a really good running game, and they should run the ball. You have to run. We saw what happened in Kansas City. They could not run the ball whatsoever against Tampa Bay, and you saw how it affected their offense, even with Patrick Mahomes. So that's why, Seattle, I've always believed it needs to be about, depending on how good your quarterback is, 70-30. 70-30 passing to running. And Russell Wilson has shown if given a little bit of help, he can get you to the Super Bowl. Last time he had a legit all-around roster around him, went to the Super Bowl twice. So that's my thoughts on that situation. Now, let's have a little fun. Today is President's Day. And I'm going to talk about some of the things going on in Washington, D.C. right now. No, I'm just totally joking. I'm totally messing with you guys. I'm not sniffing politics. But I have been, we all have. This is a sport. This is it's a sports show. We talk a little pop culture. That's how it works. But this is primarily a sports show. But we all have our own interest, right? And something I've actually had an interest in this longer than I have sports, believe it or not. And how big of a sports fan I've been for a while. But one of my favorite things to study is presidential history. It's always fascinated me. Is obviously the president's personal lives and what they did, why some presidents were greater than others. So let's discuss a little bit some of our former presidents and the sports they like to play. So Abraham Lincoln, legend has it that he was, Abraham Lincoln, a guy who I consider personally the greatest president we've ever had. Because, how I rank presidents is, I need to come out with a list one of these days. People are going to get mad at me if I do this, but I need to come out with a list one of these days. Maybe next President's Day I'll do this and rank because there's 46 presidents, of course. Of course, one man served twice, Grover Cleveland. He was the 22nd and the 24th president of the United States. I need to come out with a list of my top 46 presidents. That'd be interesting. But I always say, here's how I judge the best presidents, because you notice on a lot of lists when they rank them is the top of the list is usually presidents that dealt with crisis, right? And handled it as well as he could have, right? That looked crisis in the eye and saved the country, right? You look at John F. Kennedy in the brief time he was president, right? He had the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, we were in serious trouble back in the early 60s, and John F. Kennedy, with his cool timber, got us out of it. And that's why I consider JFK the fifth or sixth best president of all time for that reason. That, and he was, before his assassination, he was going to deal with the civil rights, the civil rights movement that was going on. Dr. King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and of course his successor, I should say, Lyndon Johnson, dealt with that. And you see the worst presidents. I'll throw out some names: the James Buchanans of the world, the Franklin Pierces of the world, the Warren G. Harding. They had either it was controversy or it was crisis that they dealt with horribly, right? Because, like, for example, hopefully I'm not boring you guys, but the 14th president, Franklin Pierce, and the 15th president, James Buchanan, hastened the coming of the Civil War for the 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. So they made his job that much harder. And like I said, I consider Lincoln the best because we've had a lot of wartime presidents, but we've never had one except for Lincoln that dealt with war at home. We're fighting each other. And I mean, could you have done any better than Abraham Lincoln did in those dark days of our country? And so I'm just looking at some of the presidents and their interests. And you know what? I love it when, I know some people criticize the presidents when they don't, or when they pick the Super Bowl or the Final Four. And I'm like, man, I love it because, something I love. What I want my presidents, Republican or Democrat, what I want from my presidents, this is just me personally. Of course, you want them to do a good job when it comes to policy and however that lines up, liberal or conservative. But what I want a lot from, I think it's kind of the top of my list. Are you relatable? Right? Are you something? Are you someone we could I don't want to say lean on, but someone in times of crisis we could say, okay, he's got this. He's got us, or she's got us. If we ever have, hopefully we have a female president at some point in the future. It's long overdue. It took us almost 250 years to get a black president. So hopefully, that can happen in the future. But you look at, for example, George Bush. A lot of people don't know this, but President George W. Bush, he owned the Texas Rangers. He actually had a stake in the Texas Rangers. And so I'm trying to check when he had ownership here. I'm checking the source of all sources, Wikipedia. Let's see. I don't believe I can find it here. Texas Rangers owner. Let's see. Okay, there you go. He in April of 1989, Rangers owner and oil tycoon Eddie Chills, I hope I'm saying his name right, sold the team to an investment group headed by George W. Bush for $89 million. And so said while his own equity in the team was a small one, $500,000, Bush was named managing general partner of the new ownership group. So George W. Bush, he's a Texas Rangers fan. He's a Dallas Cowboys fan. You look at former President Barack Obama. He's a huge Chicago fan. He's a Bulls fan. Cubs, or sorry, excuse me. I apologize. Obama's actually not a Cubs fan. He's a White Sox fan. So he had to see the rival Cubs win the World Series a few years ago. He's a huge Bears fan. I'm trying to think. Let's see. I know President Bill Clinton is a big Arkansas fan. Let's see. I actually read today that George H.W. Bush, he actually in his younger days he met Babe Ruth. This is before he's president. Babe Ruth passed away, I think the 50s, if I remember correctly. But in his younger days, George H.W. Bush got to meet Babe Ruth. President Gerald Ford was a great football player in college. I think he might have been an All-American, if I remember correctly. Jimmy Carter loves to play golf. Let's see. I'm trying to think of. I think our current president, Joe Biden, I think he likes to go on walks. I know he used to go for jogs, but he played college football as a receiver. I think he was a receiver. So that's why I want it, when it comes to sports, for my presidents, I love when they pick Final Fours. I love it when they pick the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals, the World Series. I think that is as American as it gets, right? Because we see in these times, there's not a lot we can agree on as Americans these days. But one thing we can all agree on, like we love the World Series. Everybody loves the World Series and the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, Final Four, college football national championship, right? Like those are like our favorite events in sports. And that's what I've always said that is so great about sports. And I think music is in this same category. Is sports and music are like the only two things, really, if you think about it, that unify us. I mean, really it is. And so like those are the two things, like we can agree that, we love a song, or I love this team, or picking games. Like that's fun. That's as American as it gets, in my book. And so like I don't like it. I wasn't a fan, to be quite honest. I saw like President Biden refused to pick the Super Bowl. I'm like, hey, there's no wrong predicting the Super Bowl, right? I think former President Trump predicted some Super Bowls. I believe former President Obama also picked Super Bowls and World Series. Like people, you're gonna have your people out there that say, "Oh, the president picked this team, so it's rigged for them." And, it's just like, just enjoy the game, because at the end of the day, for 3.5 hours during the Super Bowl or 2.5 hours during an NBA Finals game, if they have the time, of course, to watch the game, because they got pretty big schedule on their plate, they're fans just like the rest of us. It's very relatable. That's always been at the top of my list. Like what I want from my presidents personally is for them to be relatable, right? Because they're the president of the United States, the most powerful human being in the world, and so that ability to connect, right, through sports, through music, whatever that may be, I think is American as it gets, and as human as it gets. So I've always loved that. So on this President's Day, I should have ranked my 46 presidents. Maybe I'll do that next year. Who knows? So that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to catch Carving It Up on Thursday, out as always at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. I had a brain fart there. YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter. Also, Carving It Up Podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, and Anchor. Hope everybody has a great week. Please, especially people in Texas right now, please continue to stay safe right now through the pandemic and through the inclement weather. God bless you all, and peace out.